Hello, good afternoon. My name is Brittany Kellman, and I am doing a STEM talk today regarding mental health. This is for Chem 112, Professor Consul's class. So the topic I chose is, what is mental illness, and is there something that we can learn from the different mental states? The reason I chose this topic is because mental health illness is very important to me. I actually majored in behavioral health at Penn State University for undergrad. I majored in biobehavioral health, which is an interdisciplinary major that focused on psychology, biology, and sociology of human behavior and people in the world. It was very fascinating to learn about how the brain works and how we as people behave and interact with one another in society. So naturally, this topic was very dear to me as I continue my career to work in mental health and psychiatry. So with that being said, I'm going to be going back and forth looking at my screen so I'm not forgetting anything. So let's get started. So I wrote down some fun facts to learn about mental health. Nearly 1 in 5 people have a mental health illness in the United States alone, and that toggles down to 51.5 million Americans who have lived or have been diagnosed with a mental health illness. Now, when mental health illness is broken down, the definition of a mental illness is a condition that affects the mental, behavioral, thinking patterns, and emotional portions of one's brain and one's ability to function. Now, mental health illnesses can range from mild to moderate all the way to severe, as well as low functioning to high functioning. With percentages, again, 70.5 women have been diagnosed and or are living with the mental health illness, and 56.5% of men in this country are living with or have been diagnosed with the mental health illness. When you break down it by socioeconomic status and race, 70.5% of those patients are white, 57.9% are Black, and 52.8% are Hispanic Latino. When it comes to different mental health illnesses, some of you may know, you hear things like depression, anxiety, OCD. So I just wanted to break down the most common mental health illnesses that we do hear on a daily basis. We have clinical depression, we have anxiety disorder, bipolar disorder, which is broken down by bipolar 1 or 2. We also have dementia, ADHD, ADD, schizoaffective disorder, OCD, autism, and PTSD. Now, briefly, I'm just going to go over some of these mental health illnesses just for educational purposes. And so let's start with clinical depression. Clinical depression is when a person has a lack of interest, lower mood, increased fatigue, loss of appetite, no will to do or participate in their daily activities and responsibilities. Sometimes that includes even having suicidality, thoughts of hurting oneself, self-harm behaviors, failure to keep one safe. So those are some things of clinical depression. In order to be clinically depressed, a patient has had to have at least 5 of those symptoms for a span of at least 2 consistent weeks. With clinical depression also, there are either high functioning clinical depression, which is basically you are depressed, but you are able to still maneuver through your day-to-day life. And then you have low functioning, which are the clinically depressed patients who do need assistance, such as inpatient therapy, outpatient programs, things of that nature. Anxiety disorder, that falls into the range of panic disorder, the fear of not being able to do something, constant worrying. That's what anxiety disorder is. For bipolar 1 or 2, we have the bipolar 1 and 2, which are your low moods and your manic episodes. Manic episodes present as like hyperverbal patients who are having sometimes hallucinatory thoughts, patients who have super angry moments or super low depressed moments. Those are the difference between the bipolar 1 and 2. OCD, and AD and things like dementia. We know that dementia patients are usually the geriatric population that have a memory loss. Going back to different mental health, you have your moods, your emotions, your thinking, which clinical depression falls under thinking. Your moods, anxiety falls under moods. Then when you have disorders such as like autism, which is a developmental disorder that clogs a patient's capability to think and interact on a normal normal basis, those fall under your thinking abilities. And then you have your schizoaffective, dementia, ADHD, those cognizant abilities as well, and memory loss. So those are the different types of mental health illnesses that I thought I wanted to share with everyone. So let me see. I'm pulling up my notes here on my computer. With mental health illnesses as well, I also learned that some people are predisposed to mental health illnesses. You know, sometimes we hear that, oh, it runs in my family type of thing. Anxiety is something that doesn't run in family despite what we have been taught, but something such as dementia, you know, bipolar disorder, clinical depression, those are things that can run in your family. And the reason is because we have different hormonal chemical imbalances, such as your cortisol levels, which is your stress hormone. Cortisol is how we manage stress and how we cope with stress every day. Sometimes something small like losing your keys, right? Like losing your keys may stress you out for like 5 minutes, but it can stress someone else who is predisposed to a mental health illness for about 10 minutes, an hour, 3 hours. Everyone's different. Everyone's totally different. We also have things like your serotonin and your dopamine level hormones. You know, serotonin is your mood hormone. That is like how you handle your mood. Like, are you happy today? Are you super sad? Do you have such a high or low tolerance when it comes to things that shouldn't bother you on an average basis? And same with dopamine. That's your happy hormone, you know. Your dopamine releases. Are you in a good mood today? Are you more susceptible to being upset? And, you know, going back to the serotonin, they kind of go hand in hand. So also I learned that which is interesting to me, a lot of patients who do share mental health illnesses do have a loss of gray matter in different parts of your brain. And your gray matter is responsible for like your thinking, your self-control, and your memory loss, which goes back to our different mental health illnesses, such as your dementia for your memory loss patient, your clinical depression and your anxiety, and, you know, the higher thinking, your autistic patients, as well as your ADD, ADHD patients that have that have difficulty concentrating and staying focused with different topics, different activities, you know, something that stimulates their brain. Having a loss of gray matter is really, it's very interesting to have learned that. So those are some of the things I want to see as well. Let me make sure I'm not forgetting anything. Let's see. No, I think that's all. Some of the links that I used today, I did use let me see. I did use the National Institute of Mental Health as my main source for looking up all of my mental health illnesses and conditions, as well as getting the breakdown of my percentages and my statistics. And I did also use the public library of the National Library for Medicine as well through another source. So I hope that was super informative, and thank you so much.